Welcome everybody to Samudra Shakti Online. Our event started in Colorado, and it was a live event called Samudra Shakti, and it was in the Colorado Rocky Mountains back in September of this year. And the USA teachers gathered, and it had been quite a while since we had all gotten together, and it was awesome. The Shakti was high, the collaboration was strong, and we wanted to keep that energy going, and that's how Samudra Shakti Online was born. So I'd like to introduce Jacalyn Prete from New York City. I know many of you already know her. She is an Anusara certified teacher and a teacher trainer. Since 2001, Jacalyn has been training teachers in Anusara throughout the world, including New York City, Italy, Germany, Belgium, Japan, and China. As well, she's the former licensing director for the Anusara School of Hatha Yoga. She continues to mentor teachers through their certification process and as they begin to launch their own immersions and teacher trainings. She is a licensed massage therapist and specializes in both therapeutic applications of Anusara Yoga, as well as assisting, observations, and hands-on assists. She also contributed to the 300-hour advanced teacher training, helping to co-author the module for heart theming, teaching her signature, Find Your Own Unique Voice. Jacalyn went through a serious bike accident in 2016, and through a very intense 5 surgeries and recovery, she has increased her skill set to help students and teachers move through the trauma of illness, injury, and recovery. Today, she will share her passion for storytelling. And I'm going to turn this over to Jacalyn.
Thank you, Lisa. And just thank you all for coordinating this and making the space for this to happen, the container for it. I'm just so honored to be invited to join tonight and being one of the presenters for this event. And so thank you all who showed up live, and for those of you be watching the recording later. We just really so welcome you and so excited for your participation and just this wonderful feeling of connection. So if you don't mind, I'd just like to do an Om to start. So let's sit up nice and tall and close your eyes and visualize people from all over the world going to join us this evening or in the future, and for a shared intention of how do we find our unique expression through this amazing artful work of being an Anusara instructor, of really connecting to our hearts, connecting to the deep core wisdom teachings of yoga, of non-dual tantra, and weaving those beautiful nuggets, those juicy nuggets of wisdom through our practice, through our teaching. Let's have that shared sankalpa. Bring your hands together in Anjali Mudra, and let's Om one time together. Take a deep breath in. Bowing your head to your heart. Releasing your hands, lift your head and open your eyes. So one of the reasons I got so excited about trying to help people find their unique voice is, I've been on the certification team for many years, and just seeing people come to their certification process just kind of lost. How do we do this? They were sort of doing things we call it by the numbers. I used to have paintings where you would color each little paint in by a number, and then you'd sort of see a picture, but it wasn't really coming from them, and how to draw that out of people. So that's been my passion, and how to help teachers find their unique voice. The hallmark of our practice is to incorporate these teachings of non-dual tantra. And teaching with the theme in the UPAs is really what distinguishes us from other styles. So what can we do to make this skill feel more authentically ours? So first of all, what is a theme? Why do we even have it? It's a theme, it's an idea, a concept, a thought that is meaningful to us. So sometimes when we try to like overthink, what can I say that's really significant or of interest to my students? And the truth is, you just want to really, your sankalpa, your intention is to teach a theme that really resonates with you. So there are many different sources for storytelling. It can be lessons you've learned from life, right? It can be ancient teaching tales. We have a great source here in New York, Ronnie, who has beautiful teaching tales that, I'll be telling a couple tonight for you. And it just like unbelievable teaching tales that are very simple, very succinct, but then the teaching just like lets the student go right into a really deep experience of themselves. So beautiful. You can borrow from mythology, the Hindu pantheon, the Greek mythology, Roman mythology, indigenous tales. There's beautiful tales in all of our cultures. I remember when I was visiting China, they were telling me this wonderful tale from China. It was just so fantastic. And in Japan, we're talking about Shintoism, just what comes from your own culture can so be resonating with your people and in your culture, from different holidays that we don't celebrate here in the U.S. that you guys celebrate. So finding also great stories from people like the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, these great Pema Chodron, Baba Muktananda, Guru Mai, Jesus, right from the Bible, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, these beautiful people, Martin Luther King. So you tell stories from your experience that really kind of resonate. You don't have to worry about making them up yourself. And if you feel like you're not ready to do that yet, you can actually borrow from ancient teaching tales. But the truth is, the story really needs to have a universal theme to it, something that applies to everyone. And then the best way to do it is to go ahead and tell a tiny little anecdote of how that universal theme applied to your life, how you applied it to yourself. And I'll give an example of that in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you my first tale of the night. And this is a popular Rudrani story that comes from Baba Muktananda, the Siddha Yoga lineage. And it's called The Lion's Cub. So I already have a title, right? So once upon a time, there was a lion's cub. And he was abandoned by his mom, was killed. So he was abandoned and living on his own. And these beautiful donkeys, this little tribe of donkeys, took him in and raised him. And so the lion cub became just like a donkey. He would carry the laundry and go up and down and do the carrying. And one day the whole tribe of little monk donkeys were getting a drink at a stream. And so they were getting a drink, and all of a sudden they see out of the jungle comes this huge lion. Roar! And all the donkeys scream and they run to the hills, except the little lion cub just froze. I'm going to be eaten. He was terrified. And the lion looked over at him and said, "What are you doing here?" And she goes, "Oh, lion, please don't eat me." He said, "You're not a donkey. Come here. I'm going to show you something." So they walk over together and they look into this pond. He said, "I want you to look into the pond. What do you see?" And the little lion cub looked into the pond, and the lion was looking next to him. He says, "I see two lions. That's who you are." And he says, "By the way, this is how a lion speaks." Roar! And the little guy goes, "Ah!" And they go off together in the jungle. So what is the story telling us? We hang out with the donkeys. We forget who we truly are. Sometimes something happens to us and we get around this big, beautiful kula of lions, right? And they're saying to you, "I think maybe it's time for you to present one of these workshops, Jana." We said earlier today. And so it's like she's going, "But I'm hanging out with the donkeys," right? So we have to encourage each other to step into a bigger place in our lives. So what is the heart quality? Boom, courage, right? Standing on your own into your own dharma, instead of like hanging out with people who like to play it safe. Now, so that's my story. Here's the heart quality. We could like already riff on what UPAs we could use. Draw into who you really are, your true essence. And from that, you take a roar. I think I was in class the other day and we actually did, Simasana. Stick your tongue out. And so everybody was roaring and having a ball, so the class was energized by the story. And I just kept weaving in. Are you going to be a donkey or are you going to step into your lionness, right? So they just kept asking that question. And that's all I needed to do. I didn't have to, go back to the whole story. So this is one of the ideas, like this little beautiful, I bet each one of you could find a story from even your childhood or your culture that would be like the Lion's Cub story. Now, what is really important in that storytelling? So what's the elements of a good story? You have to have the narrative that imprints meaningfulness onto the body. It shifts your perspective. It teaches a lesson, right? We are truly not standing into our own power when we pretend we listen to the small self. Come on, that's the hanging out with the donkey part, right? You have a starting place and you have a destination. We started with the little lion cub thinking he was hee-haw, hee-haw. Yeah, I use that little sound. I didn't do that in my story. He was a donkey, making donkey sounds, acting as if he was a donkey. And then he started acting like he was a lion as he stood into his true to feeling. You have to have conflict and revolution. The conflict was he thought he was going to die, but he had to stand into a new place. And the resolution was he was able to leave that life of mundane, just work a day life and go into his fullness, right? Have a little humor. I forgot the hee-haw. That's always good for a laugh. It provides context for your class. It connects students to their sun call, but everybody wants to stand up and be in a lion. We don't want to hang out with the donkeys, right? We see ourselves in each of the characters. We see ourselves mentoring others. We're the lion. We see ourselves as the little lion cub needing to stand in our own fullness. We see ourselves as the donkeys, like hanging out with people that just don't see our fullness. So we see each of us, right? And then it relates to the heart quality and how to do the asana. What would be a good pose? Because anybody want to write in the chat, what would be a good pose, peak pose for this this donkey story today? Do I have any volunteers? Go ahead and throw that in there. Anybody giving a type on the peak pose? No takers. Well, it could be full entourage, right? Holding on with a strap behind your back, right? It could be full wheel. It could be jumping up into a handstand. How about Ardha Chandrasana? Yay! And heart quality and a heart quality pose. Any heart quality pose. Okay, all right. So you have to set up the place, right? Also in storytelling, you want to set the place. It's characters, narrative, set the place. So different places respond to different aspects of our consciousness. Like the forest, a story that includes a forest could be meaning the subconscious, right? If there's a clearing in the forest, that could represent your heart, like going from the clearing into this place of the heart. At the mountaintop, where there's, above the tree line is exposure, right? To seeing, being able to see beyond, the thicket of the trees. I can see a bigger picture. If there's a river in your story, it could be about symbolizing change, moving from place to place. The ocean is vast and limitless. It's a great symbol for consciousness, awareness. In the there's caves, that means internal experience, right? So we want to ask some questions about the story. Why are we here? What are we here to learn, right? What is the class about today that we're teaching on this donkey and lion story? What's the headline? Are we here to contemplate our dharma? And what does that mean? What does dharma mean? Our spiritual path. Why should I care, right? So if I'm doing this, I'm going to step into my courage. Why should I care? What is this? How is this going to help me? It's going to help me overcome my limited feelings of unworthiness. Yes. And how does this relate to how we're doing asanas? So each time, we're in a challenging pose, or we want to come out of a pose and we don't feel like we could possibly make it. We're going to call upon some courage to stand into a new place. Yes? So those are the questions you can ask. You can bring the theme into the breath work, right? So at first you're sitting, you're settling, and then breathe in that which gives you a feeling of who you are, this discovery of the self, the true self. Breathe out any feelings of unworthiness. This goes with your theme of standing into a new place and as a new lion, and letting go of the limited self, which was represented by the donkey, right? So I have a couple of homework assignments for you. I have more information here, but the 2 homework assignments from this process is to do a journal writing process, okay? So I want you to write this down. So I want you to mind your own experience for themes, write freely about your topic in a journal. So the first part is you write like 2 pages. You write out 2 pages about whatever topic you're going on. So you look at something, I'm gonna explore, I'm gonna explore something more simple. I'm gonna explore courage in trying to move into a new place in my life. Maybe I'm not gonna use the Lion Cub story, but that's sort of the general theme, right? So you write pages and pages, and then you reduce that down to a couple paragraphs. That's one thing. And then you reduce the 2 paragraphs down into a sentence, and then into like a headline, right? So you got that one phrase that's going, like, remember your lionness. Like that'll be what the sentence is. And what is the main lessons you want your student to get? This is how you boil down whatever the heart theme that you're talking about. So you go from a long journaling process down to a nice, concise thing. And then from there, how did you feel when you were in the experience? I felt expanded. I felt that I could do anything. I had unlimited possibility. So this is where your heart quality will come. Or I felt like my heart was fuller. Well, maybe I could do Urdhva Dhanurasana. That's would be the pose that would go with that expanded heart, right? So I want to see. Let me see what else. I've got so much information here. We also want to add the Chitta Ananda into this, right? So when I'm going back to my donkey and lion story, when I realize who I truly am, my full worth of who I am, my lion nature, I have such a celebration because I can stand in my unlimited potential. That's the celebration, right? So that's Ananda. So it's going with, it's not like something you add on. It's like it's mined from that theme. So that is the story that goes with that. I want to give another example of a story that I been using recently. Where is it? Okay, so.
Jackie, just
Yeah.
really quick, we have
Go
a
ahead.
couple of chat comments. One, Jennifer
Yes.
Benning is saying, I used this story in a freshman engineering class this week. Engineers are always faced with a sense of imposter syndrome, and that might work into a yoga class later. So fun. Lisa responded, I just heard about a great TED Talk on imposter syndrome this week.
Fantastic. This is, do you see how, when I'm talking about universal, immediately you get like, oh my God, I've heard another talk about this. I could so apply this to my own class. When people come out of your class going, how did you know I so needed that theme today? Right? That you just came up with something from your life that was super authentic that I needed to hear. And then they get this hit of, oh my God, that applies to me as well. So I have another little ancient tale because there's so many great ones. Okay, so there's ancient tales, and then there's of course the example of our own, life story. So the other one is going to be the Jan will remember this, the fishnet story. So once upon a time there was a fisherman, and he was been fishing for decades and decades along this little river, and he was tired of his life. He's just tired, and he was looking up on this little hill, and he sees at the top of the hill this beautiful hut, and there's smoke coming out of the chimney. And he docks his boat, and he goes up to the hut, and he knocks on the door. The old wizened guy opens the door and welcomes him in, and he gives him a beautiful meal, and he offers him to, he can bathe, and here's a bed that's strewn with jasmine flowers. This fisherman had gone to heaven. He couldn't believe his great fortune. He drank wine. He was ready for bed. He snuggled into the bed, and he tossed, and he turned, and he turned, and he tossed, and he couldn't sleep. Finally, in the middle of the night, he gets out of this beautiful bed. He goes back to his boat. He wraps himself in the smelly fishnets and falls right to sleep. So as we're going through class now, right, what would be a great peak pose, and what is the heart quality that we would want to get for coming out of the fishnets? Does anybody have a good one for a heart quality for that pose? What came up for you emotionally when that came up? Anybody have an idea? Let's see if anybody's going to kind of come up with something. Okay, so I'll add one to you. So when we feel limited, right? Detachment, fantastic, right? Detachment. When we are stuck, right, to our old ways of being small, not being in our fullness, right? Not, like I'll relate this to courage to change. Thank you. Yay, we're jumping in. Hey, Chaya's here. So we have the courage to stop our old patterns. But when we feel like we're being threatened, right? Our little ego is so threatened, it has to go back and wrap ourselves in the fishnet. So we're going to cultivate courage today, surrender to, the higher self, to our inner teacher, and really let go of that no longer serves us, right? So as we try to come up into handstand, and the students goes, I can't do this. I can't do this, Jackie. I can't do this. I can't do this, Maduri. What am I going to do, right? I want you to think of the smelly fishnets as saying, you can't do that. That is the voice of the small self. So now you have an image, you have a story that you can call back on over and over again that will help you to stand in your courage and move into a deeper place, right? So we've got courage, we've got heart theme. So you see where we have narrative, we have a conflict, we have a resolution, that we can see there's that each character is us. We are the higher self, and we are the poor little fisherman stuck in his fishnets, right? So that all of this becomes us as we move through the narrative of this, right? So these stories can help us find a way of connecting to our students in a really authentic way. There's a universality to that, right? Aren't we all, a lot of us are stuck, right? Most of us are stuck. All right, so the next part of your homework assignment, first is to do this writing assignment, right? And the exercise 2, I want to write this down for your homework, is find a friend, could be here on this call tonight if you recognize anybody, or just call up one of your teaching friends or teaching buddies. And tell your friend a personal story of something that happened to you where you learned something. Now, it doesn't have to be these teaching tales, so you can use them, please use them. Something that happened that opened a doorway. Something happened that made you light up, that took a burden away. Something that gave you courage. I hope I'm not talking too fast. If I am and you live in another country, please let me know, okay? Just please go slower, Jacalyn. I live in New York. We talk very fast here. I'm sorry. Okay, what have you learned by being on the path of yoga this year? That's a good one. If you ever have trouble coming up with a heart theme, that's a good one. What have you learned by being on the path of yoga this year? What has shifted in your life? What pose helped you create this heart quality that you came up with, right? And maybe it was full Nataraja or handstand or full wheel, right? What is the heart quality and when you're doing this with your friend, you tell your friend, you know what heart quality came up for me while you were telling that story? Blah, blah, blah. It was courage. It was surrender. it was detachment. See how we interact on this. This is how you want to interact with your friend. Yes. And so from there, then also you can start to ask, what is the Chitananda that would go with this, right? So for this heart theme about the poor fisherman, when he recognized himself, the only way to recognize your true self, that indeed the little sage is inside me, then I can cut through the smelly fish nets and stand in a new place in my life, in this beautiful, peaceful place inside, right? Now we're using this class planning template, when people go through the certification process, but why doesn't everybody have it, truly? I think, is it already on, does anybody know if this is on the website already, the Teacher's Lounge? It should be. So this class planning template I'm trying to get to you tonight. We'll sort of figure it out. So it's just a very simple, you guys can translate it into Chinese or Italian, wherever you need to go, German, French. You start with your Spanish, the theme, right? And the personal story that will help your students better understand the theme. You pick an apex pose, key alignment focus for the class, usually a UPA. You can do the opposites, muscular organic energy, inner outer spiral, whatever you want to do, or if you're going to do, open to grace and, the outer body soft or something, like just open to grace could be it. Strategies, actions that embody the theme and create the desired results. Your strategies could include, sequencing or, how you're going to get to that peak pose, right? Heart words and synonyms. Designate your primary heart word, like surrender, right? Or phrases that expand this concept. Indicate the primary heart word and the complementary opposite action as appropriate. So if you need me to explain that more, please ask questions, okay? Then the Chitananda. Now this is a very simplified little sentence stem. When you remember, when you recognize who you truly are, then you can feel bliss or peace or happiness or celebration, right? Then your demo, whatever your demo is going to be, describe your demo. You can use it to anchor in the theme and the alignment focus. So remember to put that in for your demo if you're going to use some quotes. And then this is a little diagram that you can put your sequences here and maybe a few phrases, strategies with your heart theme. And what is the timing in your class? Do you have a 90-minute class, a 45, a 75-minute class, an hour class? And so you can figure out, this is really helpful for me. I think Tiffany would help me with this. I would plan these huge workshops, 3-hour workshops and only had an hour and a half. And she was like, no, we're going to do this minute by minute. And it was really good. It kind of expanded itself, but it really helped me kind of pull my material in. So I do want to give one little quick more example of how you mine from your own experience for a story. So where the themes come from is from the teacher. And this is your, what are you focusing on your practice, or how is the practice benefiting you? What is happening in your life that is meaningful and inspires contemplation of the practice? And what do you want to share with your students? There's this something we call in English TMI, which is too much information. When somebody shares entirely too much personal information, please don't do that. There has to be a reason you're sharing the information about your personal life that really helps a student really connect to the meaningfulness of their practice. It can come from the students. What do you think the students will benefit? The first page of chapter 13 in the teacher training manual has a list and series of questions to help you select a theme from your class that focuses on this. What would best serve the students? I want the students to get out of class that would help them. What would the students enjoy, etc. Then it can also come from the wider culture, right? From the community, like a holiday, right? Some of us enjoy the themes that relate to the seasons of the year. The solstice is coming, right? Or the equinoxes, or we have national holidays in the US. I know you have holidays in China and Japan, different holidays. things that happen to your family. Like I talk a lot about my 4-year-old great niece who's just a ball, and you know, things that she's discovering in her life, and little Josie stories, you know, like, you know, your cousin, whatever. Teaching a topic from the philosophy or yoga tradition, which we just did. So if one of the stories I've been telling recently in my class about my own foibles as a teacher, and it's a little bit of a bust on me, and it's, I guess that's you know, the humor of just being human, right? Like, so I had my latest surgery, which was the 5th surgery in August, and I was nervous because when you have to take 10 weeks off of classes, you all know what that's like, and you come back and, oh my God, your classes are like empty, and at certain places you work, they really like value full classes, and if you don't have a full class, bye-bye. You know, I don't care if you've been teaching for 25 years, your class doesn't have enough people, bye. You know, so I was in terror, like all through this whole process, through my healing process, and oh my God. So I get back, I'm on my feet, I'm like teaching on you know, at the front of the classroom with the chair. I'm pushing myself to get back there. I did great. Then I went away for 2 weeks to Europe to teach, and I came back and they took one of my classes away, and I'm like, ah, you know, like just the worst possible scenario, right? Oh my God, my greatest fear happened. And then I realized that's exactly the class I wanted to let go of. That would have been the first class that goes. It's been in my intention to let go of one of my 6:30 a.m. classes for months, but I'm coming from this place of scarcity. Here's the fishnet. Okay, my fishnets, there's not enough in the world, right? Sound familiar? I'm going to die and be, you know, I'm going to be on the street, homeless. Okay, yeah, you got that one. So, so I freaked out, and I started like, what can I do to get this manager in trouble? You know, like I was going on, and I finally realized all I have to do is ask the universe for a private client. And, you know, a private would be twice as much money as the class. The next week, I get a call from this beautiful little 94-year-old. I haven't seen her in 5 years. I saw her, and she was, last time she was 89 or something, you know, like 5 or 6 years ago. And she signed up for a 10-pack. So I got this, like, you know, you know what I mean? Like, wow, you know, so what am I learned by this experience from mining my own experience? I could surrender. I could trust in the universe. I could like not cling. Here was the clinging. Remember the clinging in the other story to what doesn't work anymore. Who cares? Getting up at 5 o'clock on Thursday morning so I can get to sleep in, take a yoga class, and teach my 10 o'clock class. Freedom. Anyway, so that's my example. You know, there's the heart quality. You know, it just, you know, it could be the celebration of letting go of the limited self. I could use that with the fishnet story. Another really favorite tale I know I have is my and it's on Yoga Vibes. If you guys like Yoga Vibes, it's like honoring the ancestors. I don't know. It's my Italian background. I just, you know, think of my immigrant parents and their grandparents and how hard they worked, and so standing on their shoulders, and that's always been one of my favorite.
I have a story. Let me tell you this story. This is a story from my childhood.
Great.
My grandfather, who was a doctor and a big introvert, he didn't speak a lot, but when I was little, I was like a very bad eater. I didn't want to eat. So he used to tell me all these stories to make me open my mouth and distract me. And then I realized later in life that all his stories were like amazing stories from like big classics and movies and stuff. But at the time I didn't know. So one of the stories, his stories, this actually channels, this story was one of my favorites, is a son is taking care of her mother who is dying. And he tried everything, and then there is nothing can happen anymore. So he goes to the sage, like the smart people person in the village, and he asks, can I do anything else? She's dying. And he tells him, yeah, you can go like walk, like find the 10th mountain, and then you'll find a cave there. And in the cave, you'll know what to do. So he walks, and the stories might be very long, how for all these difficulties and the mountains and the demons, and then he finds this cave, and he goes in, and what he sees is absolutely mesmerizing. there are like millions of candles, and they're on different levels, and it's light and it's beautiful. And then he starts walking in and in and in, and then finally he's just like attracted by this. He finds two candles, and one of the candles is like with this bright big flame, and the other one is the flame is so small, it's just like almost there is nothing left there, it's like bluish. And then he takes the candle, that's his candle, and he pours from the oil of his candle. And so the second candle, his candles start like the flame is a little smaller, but the second candle starts like having this like beautiful light. So this is what he does for his mother. And I was thinking that this represented in this cave, you just like imagine like humanity through these like little lights in this beautiful cave, and all these lights are together and just like, yeah. So this is my story.
Wonderful. So when you come from, what is the teaching? So you have to be really clear about when what is this, what is the teaching from it, because I hear lots of different teachings from that. So I want to hear it really crystal. So it might take a while for us to get to that kernel, but what would be, to light?
I would say one of the things, there are a lot of things. I just like love the story that's because
it's a beautiful story, isn't it?
One of the things that I think about is how in a yoga class, in our yoga community, we're all these like lights, because we know that that's what we are from inside, like a light. So how through our teachings and through our going and doing yoga together, how these lights are like supported, we're supporting each other through the lights. And that's why we love to go to yoga classes and not only do our yoga practice alone, even if we're teachers and we can write great sequences. So these lights, they just like get energy from each other, like when we do meditation together, when we do classes together. And for example.
Fantastic. Did you see, you guys, everybody see that? It's a great demonstration. Here's this beautiful story, but can't quite find it. Boom, that's it. We are the lights. We help bring more light to the world. We light the light of someone who is dim. It's like perfect.
There is a question in the chat that might be worth answering from Sally, who's asking for good resources for God and Goddess stories.
Wonderful book by Sally Kempton called Awakening Shakti. Awakening Shakti by Sally Kempton. I put it in the chat.
Thank you, Jacalyn, for presenting tonight.
I really want to thank you guys. It was so wonderful to have that back and forth, and Alyssa just so brave to speak in another language. Like, can you imagine doing this in Chinese, you guys? Like, oh no. Very cool. And I'm just very honored. And if you want to go to my website, JacalynPrete.com, and you can get my, you can just contact me and I will send you the PDF of the class planning template. And I have a few other fun handouts that I use when I do the advanced teacher training module presentations. Thank you so much, Lisa, for inviting me, and Midori for organizing this, and everyone here. God bless you all. And we'll see you next time.
All right, everybody. Good night. Thank you for joining us from around the world. Good night.
Good night.